This video focuses on 7 full-dress motorcycles which place just as much importance on passenger comfort as they do on rider comfort. Many riders tend to favour just the one brand of motorcycle, but for those of you who are looking to purchase the most suitable bike for your touring needs, regardless of brand, this video should prove helpful. While full-dress touring bikes may not be everyone's cup of tea, there is no doubt that all of these bikes are considered to be the absolute pinnacle of luxury motorcycle touring, the Rolls Royces of motorcycles, so to speak. And if having a kick-ass sound system is your thing, stay tuned to the end of the video for some interesting facts on audio systems. While all of these bikes have plenty of power and torque for anyone's needs, all their engines are quite different. So let's have a look at their engines first. The K1600 has the most horsepower, but it's produced higher up in the rev range at 6,750 RPM, while the Harleys have the least amount of power, but their maximum power is produced much lower, at just 5,000 RPM. The K1600 also has the most torque, which is produced at 5,250 RPM, while the Transcontinental has the least amount of torque, but the Transcontinental's peak torque is produced at just 3,000 RPM. It would seem, however, that when it comes to torque, that you still just can't beat an old pushrod style 2-valve V-twin engine. Because although the Indian Pursuit with its more modern liquid-cooled engine has more horsepower and torque than the Roadmaster, its peak torque isn't reached until almost 1,000 RPM higher, whereas the Roadmaster hits peak torque at an unbelievably low 2,900 RPM. Some riders prefer an engine with a bit of character, one that shakes a bit, with a sound that's, just relaxing. The Indians, Harleys and the BMW R18 certainly all fit this bill, while the Goldwing and the K1600 engines are smoother and more sophisticated. It all depends on your own personal preference. Personally, on looks, sound and feel, the Indian Roadmaster and the BMW R18 tick all the boxes for me, but this video is about what ticks your boxes. Let's have a look at each of their seats, which obviously when it comes to comfort is probably the single most important factor. There's really no point in me commenting on which bike I reckon has the best seat, because asses are like opinions. Everybody's got one and they're all different. So unless you get a chance to ride every single bike, or at the very least sit on them all, seat comfort can be a bit of a conundrum. However, having owned an electric glide for many years, I can certainly vouch for the comfort level on Harley-Davidson touring seats. But I'm not quite sure what Honda were thinking when they changed from this seat on the previous generation of Goldwings to this new one. No! With such large machines, the actual seat height is another very important factor, especially if you have a pillion passenger that moves around a lot when you're coming to a stop. Because with all this weight, it might be necessary for you to put both feet down just to hold the fucking thing up. Otherwise you might end up looking like a bit of a dick. Because let's face it, all of these bikes are absolute mammoths at around 400 kilos or so, with the lightest being the K1600 and the heaviest being the Transcontinental. So make sure you can get both feet down. In this regard, both of the Indians win hands down. Some of these bikes have fork-mounted fairings and some have frame-mounted fairings. Some have adjustable windscreens and some do not. This really just comes down to personal preference. Although strong winds will negatively affect the handling on a motorcycle with a fork-mounted fairing somewhat more than a bike with a frame-mounted fairing, it's only a marginal difference, and to be honest, it's not really an issue. The instruments and infotainment screens are generally further forward on a frame-mounted fairing, creating a more spacious feeling, while on a fork-mounted fairing they are closer, making them easier to see and reach. Fork-mounted fairings also tend to give some riders more confidence during low-speed manoeuvres, because the fairing turns with the handlebars. Lean angles on all the cruiser style bikes are all pretty much the same, while both the more sporty looking 6-cylinder machines do offer greater lean angles. Fuel capacities on all machines are different too, as are their fuel consumptions. So a much more relevant comparison is fuel range. Listed here is an estimated maximum fuel range of each bike, from full to totally empty. Please remember this is only a guide and is dependent on your riding style and the conditions at the time. Another very important feature of a touring bike made for two people is obviously storage space. The R18 has the least amount of storage space with 102 litres, while the Indian Roadmaster has the most with 137 litres. Of course, if you want to substantially add to your storage space, all these large bikes will very easily tow a trailer, which will give you at least 500% more storage space. Contrary to what many believe, if it's done correctly, towing a trailer behind a motorcycle is quite safe. If you want to know more on this subject, there are a few videos on the channel which cover all aspects of how to safely tow a trailer behind a motorcycle. Now, getting back to what I mentioned at the beginning of this video about sound systems. Audio hardware manufacturers like nothing more than to brag about their product's performance. But, and this is a big but.
No! God, please, no!
Because amplifier power is a misunderstood concept. If your bike has an audio amplifier power of, let's say, 200 watts, doubling your amplifier's power to 400 watts will not give you anywhere near twice the volume level. It will only give you about a 3 decibel increase in volume. You would need 4 times the power, or an 800 watt amplifier, to get a noticeable increase of 6 decibels in volume level. True fact. A 100 watt amplifier, made with quality components, will outperform a 200 watt cheap-ass alternative every single time. This is why companies such as Harman Kardon and Marshall exist, because they don't make rubbish. Quite often, a cheaper alternative is to buy better and more efficient speakers. By efficient, and I'm just speaking in general terms here, I mean a speaker which requires less amplifier power to obtain any given volume level. This is measured in sensitivity and will be written in the specifications for the speaker itself. An inefficient speaker may have a sensitivity of, say, 85 decibels, whereas a very efficient speaker might be as much as 100 decibels. There's a lot more to it than just that, and I don't want to get too technical as it's a very complex and involved subject. Just don't get fooled by high wattage amplifier claims. Straight off the showroom floor in standard trim, while it's a very tough call, unless you had every single bike parked side by side, both the Indians, the R18, and to a slightly lesser degree both the Harleys, do seem to have the best sound systems. With the K1600 and the Gullwing, not quite as good. However, Indian and Harley both offer fantastic audio upgrades for their touring bikes, as does BMW for the Transcontinental. And one last point that I should make is, you can spend as much money as you like on your bike's sound system, but it still won't anywhere near compare to the sound quality that you would get from a good set of helmet speakers. But of course, nobody will ever notice your helmet speakers, will they? All these bikes come fully loaded with a huge amount of electronic aids, such as cruise control, traction control, and different riding modes, etc. The list is as long as your arm. Some have features the others don't, like Honda's DCT models, which have a walking mode as well as a reverse. It's just a matter of deciding what's important to you and what you think is necessary. That's about it. So I hope you found this video interesting and helpful. Cheers.